Hey, it's me, SB. I'm so glad that you're back. So it is Sentro Day once again. And today I am going to be showing you how I am going to make a hat single layer with a brim and a folded top. You probably saw the thumbnail, so that's what we're going to do today. So what you're going to need is some yarn that works really well with your machine. In my case, I have the yarn that I tested in that video up there. So go check that out if you haven't. So you're also going to need a piece of waste yarn. Neat little trick is if you put your yarn guide in between your last and your first peg and then hit the clear on your machine, it'll work perfectly every time. So we're just going to cast on with our waste yarn here. And that's all we're doing is casting on with this. We are not working with this yarn any further. And it's always a good idea to have a contrasting color. Okay. So we're just going to drop this, and we're going to have to remember that this one is not going to be fully wrapped. And we're going to go ahead and attach our new yarn. Okay, so let's go ahead and put our yarn in our yarn guide, and we're going to leave this tail just a little bit longer. We don't want it to be too crazy long because we're really not going to be seaming or sewing with it. We just want to make sure it's long enough that we can, hide it. And we're going to be going in the middle tension guide. And I'm going to hold both of these together, or all three of them. And we're going to start working our first round. Alright, and we're going to work about maybe 5 to 10 rounds this way, and then I'll show you what we're going to do next. Okay, so I just completed the 10th round. What I am going to do is I'm going to gather all of my stitch markers. And so now we're going to go through with our stitch markers, being sure to locate that very, very last stitch, which is wrapped right in here. So that is our last stitch, and I just kind of pull it out, and I'm going to place my stitch marker on there. Pull my waste yarn to find that first stitch. And we're just going to go around placing our stitch markers in our initial stitches here. So we're just going to pull this out here. Grab your waste yarn, pull it, and you can see the stitch right in there. And this is probably going to take a little bit of time, but I promise you it's going to be worth it. It's not nearly as much time as it takes to knit it like by hand. And I just wanted to make a quick note about this first stitch, or the last one rather, because this one doesn't technically get wrapped at the beginning. But you're going to find that your tail is actually going through that first stitch. So be sure to kind of pull on that. So I'm going to work around to about 40 rounds, and then I will be back. So work 40 rounds, and I'll be back to show you what we do next. Alright, round 40 is complete. Be sure that you stop right in between the last and the first peg. And now we are going to go back and we are going to locate our last stitch, which is, for me, is this blue stitch marker here. So that's our last one. This one is our first stitch here. So now all I'm gonna do is very carefully, I'm actually gonna take the stitch marker off, and I am going to place this stitch on my first peg. And we are just gonna go all the way around doing that. I'm gonna move this over. Make sure that your loop drops down. We are going to grab the next one. Usually just put my finger in there and unclip my stitch marker. Put it over the hook and make sure that it drops all the way down around those hooks. I hope you can see that. So we're just gonna work it up. Make sure it drops around our two hooks there. Grab our next one. It's really hard to show. And we're just going to work all the way around, picking up our beginning stitch. Okay, so I finally made it to the end here, and your stitches are going to be kind of tight, so just, you know, take your time, like with anything. So here's our last stitch. Now we're going to have to be very careful with these here, and it helps if you have a crochet hook, but I don't. Alright, there's the last one. Now we can continue on. So I'm going to keep working, and on this round we're going to move kind of slow. So now I'm just going to continue working. I'm going to work to about 80 rounds, and I'll see how it looks. Really, the length is up to you. You kind of experiment with it. But I'm going to go to 80 rounds, and then I'll cut in whenever I get there. Alright, 80th row is complete. So now all I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cast off with some knitting needles. And I have circular ones right here. If you don't want to cast off with circular knitting needles, so if you don't want to use circular needles, you can use your tapestry needle and some lace yarn, being sure to leave your main yarn attached because we are actually going to bind off after this, and this is going to stop your live stitches from being live and make it easier to sew up. If you have another way of doing it, go ahead and do it that way. And I am just going to leave my yarn attached and put it in the middle here. I usually just go past about 3 stitches. And I just kind of hold everything down because I don't want anything to fall off. That would not be fun. Okay, so now at this point we can go ahead and remove our waste yarn from the beginning, and that is just as simple as pulling it through. And I made sure that there weren't any drop stitches, but not to say that there might be. So all I'm going to do with my knitting needles here is I'm actually going to cast off with the knitting needles all together. Like, I'm just going to go through. I really should switch to some thicker needles actually. So I'm going to switch to thicker needles here. And I think these are pretty equivalent to a 6mm. Let me see. Yeah, about 6mm knitting needles. So I'm going to switch to those. Okay, so we're going to start casting off. So in order to cast off, make sure that your tail is coming from the back. And we're just going to do a regular cast off here. Okay, so now we're back at the very beginning. So what I usually do is I hook inside, or I put my needle in between and then just wrap, and then I just pass that over, and that kind of seals it in and makes it look a little neater. And then I do it one more time, and then I just cut my yarn. Okay, so I'm going to leave a decent size tail here, and I'm going to go ahead and cut it. And I'm just going to pull all this through that one loop and tighten that up. Now you see I did do it a little tight, but it's okay because it's the top. We want the stretch all to be in here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it inside out. Just like this. And I am going to sew up the top. Use whatever method that you like to use when you're sewing, just being sure that you know it's nice and tight and it looks nice. Okay, so we are not going to fasten off our work just yet, because we are actually going to flip it to the inside, and I'm going to go ahead and put this to the inside, so when we flip it we'll already have it there. And pull that through. So we have it sewn flat, and we're just going to fold them together and sew these two ends together. So what I do is I just go through the end here, just kind of find a place to put your needle. Just like that. And then going back through our seam, which is right there, we're just going to kind of try to get it centered as best as we can. And we're going to sew it down right on top of that seam. And this would be a good time while you're doing this to attach a pom-pom if that's what you're going to do. And now we are on the inside. And our seam is right there, and I'm just going to go around this here. Okay, all I'm going to do here is I'm going to weave in my ends using my seam. I basically just do another whip stitch and then just go through those little areas. I did initially mess up at the top. I didn't make it tight enough. And yeah, anyways, I'm hiding my end in between the two layers on the brim. And here's where I messed up, where I noticed. So I had to go back and redo it. Just make sure that you do that little seam tight enough. I just wanted to leave it in so that way you could see that it is doable. It's not the end of the world. Now our hat's done. And here it is. You can wear it any way you want. Right now it looks a little strange because, you know, it's not on a head. But if we were to have it on a head, it would actually look something like that. So it gives you a little extra design option on your hats, and I quite like it. I will insert a picture of myself wearing it so you can see it. It is a little slouchy, but you can always fold this up to make it even better, as you can see. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope it was informative, and don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you want to see more. And don't forget to leave me a comment. What did y'all think about this project? Did you enjoy how fast it was? Are you going to try it? What colors are you going to use? So many questions. Let me know down in the comments. I'll see y'all later. Stay crafty. Bye.